Alright, welcome back to the SuperCoach Enough channel. In today's video, we're going to look at the NRL SuperCoach stock market for round 10, otherwise known as Magic Round. So, Magic Round's back. I'll be there on Friday night watching the dogs go around. Hopefully, see Manly do alright against the Broncos too. That'll upset my sister and my niece, who are Broncos fans, and I guess the rest of the stadium that's usually full of the Broncos fans. Also, I'll just apologise in advance. Come down with a bit of a cold or something, maybe just a bit run down from a busy few days. So, gonna try not coughing and spluttering and sniffling, but apologies if any of that does come through. So, I guess we should just get into it and kick off with the premiums, the hooker position, so 500k and above. And at the top of the list this week is Tanner Boyd. So he's snuck into the premium category. But as you can see, with an average of 48 and a 3 round average of 59 a mil isn't too bad, a nice break even. I think I'm going to pass. He's one I've already traded out. He's not worth another two trades in and out. Reece Robson, so I've got him as a point of difference, mostly down to his nice origin buy coverage and the fact that I guess the Cowboys not going too well means he's probably not a big chance of making the New South Wales side. He's one I've toyed around with earlier this week in terms of trades, but yeah, I think I'll do a bit of a preview this week again. I'm trying to transition away from doing the round previews a bit. Save one sort of day during the week, but yeah, I think there's some interesting decisions. So yeah, we'll talk about him a bit more in that point. But I think he's a good get. If you've got him, you obviously hold him. He's going to be really handy. Um, so yeah, Appy Coruscant. So I'm going to pass on him too. I guess for what we just talked about, I don't think Reece Robson is a chance of origin. I think Appy will hold his spot. Um, so even though he's got a nice break even compared to his 3 round average, and the Tigers finally getting a win, it's probably not one I'm considering just yet. Reed Marnie, so I guess a really cheap pot option. Um, I know he doesn't play around 13, but hopefully sometime next week I'll look at doing a bit of a buy planning video and talk about the potential strategy of sort of tanking a bit in game week or round 13. Game week, that's Premier League fantasy. Round 13 and sort of targeting the round 16 and 19 buys instead of trying to, get ahead in the first buy round necessarily. Marshall King, so I think he is the prime target given he won't play Origin. Um, he's averaging well. The Dolphins are doing well. If you can get to him, I would highly recommend getting him in as that pot option. Blake Brayley, I always stumble on his name. I guess it's like a Big Tino. I should just call him Blake or something like that. And I guess his brother's out too, so I might not have to do both necessarily for a while. But he's peaked in price, so you can do what you want with him at this point. I'd probably look to find some cash to get Marshall King. Or if you don't have like Harry Grant or Damien Cook and you'd like to get them in, obviously Cook isn't that far away. So I definitely would consider that move. Speaking of which, Damien Cook and Harry Grant, we'll lump them together. They're both guns. You can get them in whenever you like. Wade Egan, a nice pot option, particularly for round 13. And I haven't fully memorised the Warriors by schedule, but they may have another one that they play as well. So, like Reece Robson, a nice potential pot option at the position at that sub 600k price. Onto the cheap options, and Cody Nikorima at the top of the list this week. So given that he's playing in the 5/8 position there at the Dolphins, and he's got a nice negative break even, could be a nice little cash grab option. Might be a bit of a luxury to sideways him from say a Sonny Luke. But in saying that, it may be something I do this week, depending on a couple of other trades and that sort of thing, or a couple other potential late outs and that sort of thing. Again, preview video, I'll go into my plans a bit more detail. Mitch Kenny is, slow burning. He seems to be playing a bit of time in the middle too. There's a bit of talk about him getting dual position because he does seem to move into that lock forward position when Sonny Luke comes on. Hands say his minutes regressed a bit this week, so I think he's going to be a bit of a slow burn option at the cheap hooker position. Jake Granville seems to be the same sort of thing. Again, I guess they were completely dominated by the Sharks last weekend, so he could potentially write off a few of those scores. And again, still out of those three slow burn options, Granville probably is the best because, again, Origin buy coverage. But they're not setting the world on fire, and if you can get a second premium hooker, that's definitely the move I'd go for. Ray Stone's out with a HIA this week, so give him the HIA symbol. Sonny Luke, I've lost the faith. I've put the chop symbol on him. I am looking to move him on this week. If certain things fall into place, I may have to hold on to him for a little while longer, but I guess it's only 20k to Nicarima, so don't know if it's quite worth a boost to make that sideways move. But then again, I guess I've been a bit stubborn on some of these other guys, and they've kicked on while Luke sort of has struggled. So I might just have to cut my losses. And Brandon Smith, the cheese, had a bit of a neck injury or something like that. I didn't see the game before, but he's been named to play, so he's at that awkward price around the Tanner Boyd sort of area, just short of 500k. Doesn't play round 13. I don't think the Roosters have the best sort of Origin buy schedule, so might be one to not worry about if you haven't got him. If you have got him, you could keep him. Depends what else you got going on at the position. So onto the premium front row forward position, and at the top of the list, Adam Fanua-Blake from the Warriors. So obviously has benefited from Tohu Harris being out, Jazz Tavanga being out. But he's just, I guess, he's always had that sort of potential to, punch out consistent scores. He plays that nice style of game that we like for a front rower. Lots of work, lots of offloading, that sort of tackle busting. So I guess the price is a bit prohibitive at the moment. You can see his 3-round average is 89, but on the season it's a bit down, and Tohu is named back this week, so you'd assume he's probably not going to quite play as many minutes. But a nice pot option if you're that way inclined. Nelson Asafa Solomona, so coming off the bye, I've completely forgotten if he's still on the bubble or if he has played 3 games. I'm guessing 3 because I put the pod symbol on him. But if you're looking for a cheap sort of option in the front row position under 600k, I think Nelson could be the way in there. Tino, so he's a gun. He's just averaging his 60, doing the business. Max King, so I guess was considered to be out 3 or 4 weeks. He's been named this week. Whether he plays or not remains to be seen. But I guess he's another one in the Reed Marnie sort of boat. You can probably wait until after the round 13 bye and then get him in as a good bit of coverage in the back half of the Origin bye period. Tohu Harris, I guess this is the one that's in question for myself, and I'm sure a few teams out there, is named to start this week, but I guess a few weeks ago when he had a similar injury, they did the similar trick of naming him, late withdrawal. So, you can wait to see if he's going to get up this week. We can cut him. Both ways make a lot of sense. I am leaning towards chopping him. But, if he is playing, well, it does make sense to hold him. So, I'm trying to make trade plans around being able to wait until Saturday to see if he is playing. They do play the first game on Saturday, which is helpful, particularly depending on who your other targets and trade-ins and that sort of thing are, which for me, I think should work. But again, keep talking about my trades. We'll save that for the round preview. Joey Tarpany, gun, and 60 right on his average. Cotter was a bit disappointing, but like we said with Granville, it seemed to be across the board for the Cowboys. I thought maybe he had an injury or something, but he's named to play this week, so I'll keep the faith with Ruben. Tommy Gilbert, nice pot option. He has dipped back under 600k, but that's fine. Payne Haas, the supreme gun. If you have one of these guys in your side, it has to be Payne Haas. Onto the cheap options this week, and I guess after bringing him in last week and he's done all right with his score, I've gone big on Wiramu Greg as the best buy this week. Obviously, negative break even. Regan Campbell Gillard's still out for a while. Ryan Madison's on the bench, which is interesting. We'll see how that plays out. But you'd imagine he'll produce similar minutes, and if he puts in the work, then he's going to get those similar sort of scores. And at a bit of a cheaper price than some of the other options here on this list. It all sort of lines up that if you're looking to downgrade in your front row to facilitate cash generation elsewhere, or trading up elsewhere, I should say, here's the way to go. Bunty Afoa, so named to start in the front row again. Question marks around Tohu, so he'll make a bit of cash. That dual flexibility is pretty nice too. Plays around 13, which is nice too. So, if you're looking for one of those dual position sort of cheaper options, he is the way to go, I believe. Hame Sele, so, he's slowly making some cash. Doesn't play around 13, so, you could look to get rid of sooner rather than later, but probably, other than Greg, there's not a lot of serious options to downgrade to. If he's in your second row, there might be. We'll talk about that in a minute, but probably just worth holding. Tom Haley, another one. Warriors benefiting from their big minute forwards missing out. So yeah, just hang on to him if you've got him. If you haven't got him, probably wouldn't consider trading in. Wouldn't be worth the two trades unless you really believe he's like a solid bench option for the rest of the season. Lindsay Smith, another slow burn option. We're mostly banking on him to get more minutes through the Origin period. Resting Isaiah Yo and the like. So yeah, if you've got him, you just hang tight. I think Murdoch Masilla offers dual position. That's really about it. Junior Paulo. So this is a really interesting one. Obviously, expected him to lift with Campbell Gillard out, and he delivered the goods with an 81. So he's dipped under 500k. I could have put the bottom out symbol on him, but I've gone with the pod symbol just because, it could be that sort of cheeky point of difference that is capable of that gun sort of average of 60 plus. I guess the concern with him is the origin. So Parramatta do have a great buy schedule, but that's not much good if you're playing in Origin. So Paulo could potentially miss out on 6 games in the near future, which is probably the knock on picking him. But that's why he's a pod, not a like a bottom dollar must get in option. Toff Sipley, so he was the I guess the best buy in terms of last week with the high negative break even. Goes and gets a 12, gets himself suspended for 3 to 4 weeks. So if you did make that trade to get him in, you got a little bit of cash, but you've got to cut him. Davey Moali, so it looks like he's just been dropped. Maybe they're going to put him in the reserves just to get him some game time. But yeah, he's peaked in price. So if you wanted to go sideways to Greg or something like that, not the worst idea in the world. Otherwise you might just have to hang on to him, and it becomes a bit of a captaincy loophole option week on week. And Tavita Pangai, so a bit disappointing on the weekend despite the Bulldogs win. With a break even of 80, you can wait to get him in, and he could be a really handy player again after round 13. Onto the premium second rowers, and at the top of the list, of course, he is Dave Fafita, absolute weapon, averaging 82 for the season. So he's 800k, but he's almost a must-have. The one, I guess, knock on him would be the fact that Jeremiah Nanai is out injured, is going to, or suspended. No, suspended, sorry. So you'd imagine Fafita would be with a good shout of making the Origin side for game one at least. So the Titans, I think, have the bye in 13. Test my memory, perhaps. Like I said, the old head cold's starting to get to me a bit. But yeah, that's the only knock on him. But still, the 80 points he's getting a week, he'll catch up any points he misses out through Origin, you'd think. Lockie Fitzgibbon on the bye this week, so don't bring him in if you're looking for a 600k option this week. Um, there's probably a couple of options a bit lower that we can look at if that's I guess what you're looking for this week. Olaquatu, a bit of a pot option depending on his selection in the Origin team. Does play round 13 if he is playing for Manly, so that's something positive. Isaiah Yo, so he's a gun. He'll punch out those consistent scores week in, week out. Sean Lane, so it looks like his price has bottomed out. So if you're again looking for that Origin coverage, you'd imagine Sean Lane's not in the picture. I know he's in the extended sort of squad they pick at the start of the year of possibles and probables and all that, but I think he's more possible than probable. Madison, so I've put the bench symbol on him because he's been moved to the bench this week in team lists. Again, could be just ducks and drakes there from Brad Arthur. But did miss out last week with that injury or cold or flu. Maybe that's where I've got it from. Yeah, he should be fine, I think, to go. They might just be a bit cautious with him. Britton Nakora, so I brought him in last week and he was a bit disappointing. Went off with a bit of a niggling injury, but he's named to play this week and expected to play. So yeah, he's a gun. I hope to sort of get the gun scores from him going forward. Frizzell's another one on a bye. Isaiah Papali'i, I think I'm going to have to pass on him. He's not obviously not the same player he was going to be at Parramatta because of the sort of players around him. But I think there's just better options at the moment. So until such time that he shows a bit more on the SuperCoach front, he's not worth considering, I would have thought. Cam Murray, so I've got him on the chopping block, which might be a bit controversial because he is a gun. But I guess the fact of the matter is that he'll be playing Origin. Um, he's got a high break even. He's starting to leak a bit of cash, 3 round average of 46 when the rest of the South team is going off around him. So it might be an opportunity to start to buy plan. And I think if you're going to get rid of one of those second row guns that's playing Origin, he could be the one that's a bit more expendable until after the end of the Origin period. And Angus Crichton, so continue to wait on him. He's easing his way back in off the bench. He'll dip deep in price, and you'd imagine towards the sort of back half of the season, he could be a really nice sort of pickup for the run home. Onto the mid-range second row options, and at the top of the list, Jermaine Hopgood. So talking about, I've completely forgotten who it was, the 600k option, Lockie Fitzgibbon. That's the one. Before you could save a bit of money and actually get Jermaine Hopgood in if you traded him out. And again, given the buy coverage, you'd imagine that he would be worth it. Doesn't seem to be in the conversation for the Queensland team at the moment, but I think he would do a job if named. So you can sit and wait a bit on this, but you might not want to wait too long because, as you can see, he's back up around his 70 average, so might be the time to jump on and just hope he's not missing those chunky games with Origin and the Parramatta buys. Jackson Ford so continues to just make some cash for us. Break even at 26, so no need to sell just yet. Probably can hold till round 13 and then reassess, which is, I guess, what my plan is for him. The Cardi party, so we thought the Cardi party was over. It might be back on. He seems to be getting the start with Madison out, Madison on the bench. You think once Madison's fit to go again, he's back to the bench. But if you've got him, you could probably hold him. So a bit of a pot option there. Nat Butcher. So I've got a new symbol this week. It's the egg symbol, and it basically represents the egg on my face. After last week suggesting you could cut him, he was no chance of making his break even, and I'm pretty sure he did. And you just look at the numbers. It wasn't just like attacking; it's just workload. I didn't see the game, but I'm assuming when Crichton and Tupanua came on, the Butcher brothers just went more central, and both of them scored really well. So there's a few ones and probably a couple more coming up where I could have used the egg symbol. Didn't go too hard on myself this week, but I think I had to go with the egg there because he really is a good option. Um, like I said, until such time that he proves otherwise. Yeah, looks like slowly with Tupanua and Crichton. So I think it's his spot there for a while to come yet. And Egan Butcher, I put the weight symbol on him, but that's just in terms of, you can hold him if you've got him. If you haven't, it's always a bit iffy about when they're coming into the side. I'm talking about Crichton and Tupanua there, but yeah, I guess could have put the pot symbol on, but yeah, just went with that. Pat Carrigan, another pot option. Obviously Origin is the big concern coming up, but he's averaging 60, so he gets a shout in the conversation. Teague Wilton just keeps seeming to pop up. I keep thinking, eventually he's going to be the pass. He's going to be on the pass, but just keeps doing the business, so he's got to be considered a pod. Jacob Preston, so 46 isn't up there with his average, but um, it wasn't the high scoring game from the Bulldogs on the weekend, so keep holding him. You could trade out if you want a number for 13. But again, when we look at buy coverage, he'll be very useful in the back half. Josh King is a pot option coming off the buy. Zach Hosking, he's peaked in price, so do what you want with him, hold, trade, whatever. Johnny Bateman, I guess in the same boat as Papa Lee. I'm just going to pass until we see a bit more from him and the Tigers collectively. And Eli Katoa is a bit of a pod. The high break even might make people nervous, but he has that attacking upside, so he's always got to be considered a point of difference. And onto the cheapies, so not a lot to look at here, but clearly the best buy this week is Tyrone Peachy. 2 round average of 49 on the bubble this week, so -11 break even. And as soon as he walks out on the field and stands out at left centre, he'll get dual position. So probably, I guess, across the board, I'd suggest the number one target this week, just because of that nice flexibility. Centre wing, second row forward opens up a lot more positional swings for some people, including myself. Jack Kajeski's the other one who's a good buy. And this mostly comes back to, again, Jeremiah Nanai getting a few weeks off. So his job security has just lifted. So you'd expect big minutes on the edge, which, will make us a nice bit of cash there. Toby Couchman, so he got over for a bit of meat last week. First one in the NRL. So break even to 1, which is nice, but a bit more of a slow burn sort of option we predict. And Curtis Moran. I knew I was going to do that eventually. So again, this is one I could have had the egg on, saying he was a decent buy last week, but clearly a trap. I guess the Bulldogs are just trying to rush people back as they can to not have to rely on these sort of guys as much. So one I probably got wrong, to be fair. Into the halfbacks, and top of the list this week, Mitchell Moses. So I probably should have gone the roller coaster symbol, but given his buy coverage through Origin, the fact that between Cleary and Hines, he has no hope of seeing the New South Wales team. and I guess all the other 5'8" options that aren't Nicho Hines. Um, yeah, he's a really good pod option if you are looking for coverage at halfback through the buys. I'm more inclined to just hold the two guns, and you only need 13 players, so I can work around not having a halfback, I'm pretty sure. Adam Reynolds, forever the trap. He's still averaging with these other guys, but, he just doesn't have the upside. So that's why we can't really consider him. Nicho Hines, so he's going to be over $1 million next week. Um, yeah, so if you haven't got him, you've got to find a way to get him in. I think he's just too good. DCE, if you're really looking to go outside the box, you could go him, but he's probably now fifth on the list. SJ, the 31 and the 3 round average is a bit of a concern. The massive break even, but if you've got him, you've got him for a reason, and that's to cover round 13. But yeah, I guess, if you are panicking, you do have to find a way to get to Hines and Cleary. Then just do it. And Nathan Cleary, so 44 obviously isn't his best effort. Might still be carrying a bit of that groin injury that's been reported. Um, I guess for non-owners, the good news is that massive break-even means his price will dip. So if you've gone with a pod like Moses, you could actually make money off the trade in a couple of weeks if it all goes to plan. Into the 5'8" position, and so Jack Whiten got the cash grab symbol not just for the South contract, but also for his SuperCoach efforts. So 133 last week, which means he's now got break even of -8. Raiders do play round 13. So if you're looking for a cheaper, particularly second 5'8" option that's going to play in round 13, um, and he could be a stepping stone up to one of the guns, then not the worst player, I don't think. I think he might be just outside the state of origin team, but I know they do like him because of his versatility and his size and that sort of thing. It's probably between him and Burton for that bench utility spot. Katoa, so keeps incrementally rising in price and I guess confidence in the NRL. So yeah, he's just doing his thing. Dylan Brown turned up on the weekend, which is great to see. That's why he's the only one there I've got listed as a pod. I think it's really starting to become between him and the two guns that are listed there in terms of who you want to have at the end of the season. You can go with any two of those three and you'll probably be somewhat okay. Um, Tom Dearden, Ezra Mam, Luke Keary, they're all a bit cheaper. They're all, in the green in terms of their break even. But, if you're going to go down that route, I'd go with Jack Whiten and get, that guaranteed extra cash. The round 13 coverage, I think out of those three, only Dearden will play round 13. And I guess, we have talked about the Cowboys' good buy schedule in the past, so he's the one out of those three that are most likely. But yeah, I think there's just those better options. Phoenix Crossan, well, not sure what's going on there. He's playing hooker, which should be good, but just isn't getting the points. So a bit of a slow burn option. He's on the buy this week too. I should have actually put that on. I just realised, but um, that's fine. Matt Burton. So this one hurts. Putting the chop symbol on him, but seems to be carrying a bit of an injury. Um, and the way the Bulldogs are going, that isn't surprising. Um, but yeah, I think that's just going to hamper his upside, even though the Bulldogs did win on the weekend. And as I said, I'm more and more leaning towards Brown, Munster, and Cody Walker as the three real options. So um, yeah, and I think Burton will be in the Origin sort of set up somewhere as well, so it might be worth getting off um, and trying to get to a gun. Brimson, so another option at 5'8" who we can cut. Seems to be out for a few weeks with a hamstring injury, not the first injury he's had this year. A bit annoyed that I got rid of Jaden Campbell in my fantasy side because, yeah, he's now back playing fullback. Kalen Ponga, a bit disappointing on the weekend. Not quite sure what happened there. on the bye this week, so you can spend a week to reassess, or there might be a nice little downgrade option next week. Hint, hint. If you can't afford to go all the way up. And then Munster and Cody, they're the two guns. There's no need to worry about them. Obviously, Cody Walker is the preferred one, just given the origin situation. But, if you've got those two guys in your team, you're absolutely cheering. Onto the premium centre wings, and so I've played around with the numbers on this week just to fit everyone in nicely rather than have multiple pages for some and not much for other sections. So it might not be truly indicative of the premium options, but I mean, anyone over 650k is probably doing something right this season. At the top of the list, Nick Meaney. So it looks like Ryan Pappenhausen's been sort of delayed with his injury and his return. So I know I've told people to get off in preparation for that, but it looks like you've still got a good while yet. So, yeah, Meaney's a gun while he's playing at fullback. There's no stress there. Ewan Aitken, so just pumping out the scores, 3 round average of 90. So I've had to put the pod symbol on him. Obviously, the dual position is useful too. But yeah, he's scoring as well as any of the others, so deserves to be there in the conversation. Dan Gagai on the bye this week again. Talk about people who just keep punching out scores. An 85 last week, so 717k with a break even of 48. Should be in the Queensland team, you would think. So, probably not a buy, but if you've got him, you're absolutely cheering. Ronaldo, so I know I had the flog symbol on him last week, but pay the man some respect. 97 this week again, or just gone against the Cowboys. So over 700k, break even in the green, really great pot option. Obviously a New Zealand representative now, so won't play Origin. And yeah, it's not the worst shout. Val Holmes, another pot option, was obviously a bit flat on the weekend, but again, that seems to be the same thing I'm saying for all the Cowboys players. You know, you can get off if you're a bit worried about that break even, but it's not, I don't think it's worth the stress. Campbell Graham, so 100 or 800 and 1,000 now, so over 800k. I didn't think I'd see that, but I guess the Souths keep feeding him the ball, and he keeps scoring tries. So what are you going to do? Lachlan Mills on the bye this week. Excuse me, bit of a runny nose. Uh, you don't bring him in this week. You don't trade him out either. He's a gun. Azarko, continues to sort of be there or thereabouts. 64 last week. So as long as the Dolphins are doing well, he kicks the goals and seems to be getting on the end of some of the tries. So not the worst shout. Penasini, really good play through Origin. Obviously, has dipped from his peak price, but that's fine. And Jacob Kiraz named to play this week, surprisingly, a bit ahead of schedule. Obviously, Braden Burns' injury might have facilitated that a bit. But I'm predicting that he's going to be a really good pickup after the round 13 bye. So, one to watch out for. Onto the mid-range options, and so it's basically from 500k up to 650k. Again, just to fit on the page. So Braden Burns, a bit like Tautau Moga last week, just wait on him because he's got a sweet break even, awesome average, that mid-range price, but is injured, not playing this week. So, next time he's on the team sheet, it might be worth a little cash grab. Lemuelu, so 120, got over for 2 tries. I didn't see the game, but, when I was keen on the pick a while ago, that's what we were expecting, that upside of, he gets over for a try, that 40, 50 he gets, jumps up, and he just went through the roof. So 520k, negative 22 break even could be a nice option. And I guess, we talked about Tyrone Peachy probably being the best cheapie buy. You pair that up with Lemuelu, you've now got, or will have very soon, centre wing second row forward swing. Stephen Crichton, so I think the ship sailed on that despite the negative break even. The 50 will sort of hurt, and after next game, the massive score will drop out of the 3 round average, which sort of suggests that his cash generation will be limited from there on in. Panthers don't play round 13 either. He's an outside chance of being in the Origin team, so sort of just doesn't look like the right pick this week. Joey Manu, so, 63 is okay if that's his sort of baseline at 5'8". He's a gun, lock and load, Joey Manu. Tyrell Sloan, so back on the roller coaster. This time it's on the way down with an 18. So if you got on him this week trying to do a cash grab, you've been left a bit flat. But I guess that's what you sign up for with that sort of player. Jack Bird, so another solid DPP option up there with you and Aitken and Lemuelu is that rock solid base sort of scorer. CNK named to play. Well, I guess it all depends on how he's recovering from his concussion. But, we'll take the Warriors at their word. And if he's playing, he's in my side. Ruben Garrick, so I've got the weight symbol on him. Obviously, Manly a bit out of sorts. And, we're waiting to see what happens with Tommy Turbo too. But even then, it seems like KO Weeks takes the fullback spot. But Garrick's back out on the wing, I'm pretty sure, this week. So he should go back to, I guess, the Ruben Garrick we know and love. But if you haven't got him, you can wait. He'll dip in price, and you could get him for about 500k or so in the next week or two, going into round 13. The Hammer, so again, point of difference option, probably starting to trail the pack in terms of some of the other guns in the position. But as a cheap dual position option with the fullback, not the worst shout. Marzu, he's on the bye this week, so he's not going to lose cash. So if you do want to trade him out, I think you can. That's always the sort of tricky thing with guys like him is they do have big weeks where they break tackles for fun and score tries, and then other weeks where it just doesn't quite work out. Junior Tupou, so he was a cash grab a couple of weeks ago. Excuse me. But he's on the chopping block this week. You've made your bit of money, not as much as you probably would have liked, but that's how these cash grabs go sometimes. Toto, he's a gun. You could wait and see him dip in price. You'd imagine he'd be in the New South Wales team too, so you could even wait all the way until post-origin to get him. And onto the cheapie options. So I guess with Tautau Moga and Braden Burns both out injured, Ravalawa is the cash grab of the week. As you can see, he's a bit cheaper too. He's 475k. But he's back on the wing for the Dragons this week. We know his style of game, bust tackles, score some tries, but he does play for the Dragons, so it's a bit up and down as to whether he actually gets those opportunities or not. Jared Croker, so again, this was another example of egg on my face. I suggested that probably Robert Jennings was a better cheapie than him, and Jared Croker's made me look stupid. Robert Jennings made me look a bit stupid too, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, he looks like a really good cash cow, plays around 13. So if you are looking for a downgrade option, he probably is the best option in the centre wing. He does have an elevated price though, but I think you just take what you can get at the moment. Hayes Perham, so I've got him as a pod. It's a bit ambitious to suggest that. But the last couple of weeks, he's improved with his SuperCoach scores and just looked good in terms of getting involved in those backline movements. He seems to be a good runner of the ball too, sort of, always taking up that fifth tackle, quick play the ball sort of deal. But yeah, it's definitely improving on the passing side of things. So Robert Jennings, so I've got him as a trap. Yeah, he's proved me wrong after his massive game a couple of weeks ago. And now he's not even on the starting team, testing his back. So I've been trapped in that, and if anyone else followed my instructions, you've been trapped. Apologies for that. Egg on my face. DWZ played fullback last week. might play this week if Nickel Clockstad's out. I think Tewa Picky was named, but was also laid out. So I'd probably pass on DWZ, despite the nice break even and the average there. Warbrick, so I've got the chop or the weight symbol on him. I guess it just depends. His nicer break even means I'd lean towards the weight. But if you need to get the extra money out of him, you can definitely chop him. Michael Cheecam, that cheaper DPP option. If you are looking to open up that swing with Tyrone Peachy soon. Paul Alamotti, so his price has bottomed out. We're just waiting for that next spike game so we can cash in. And Taruva, he could almost be in the same sort of position. I think, if you had to pick one from him or Warbrick, you'd pick Taruva. But, if you need the extra 15k, you can cut Warbrick and keep Taruva. And on to the fullback. So I guess before I said Tyrone Peach is the best buy. It's probably not true. It's this guy, Dream Buller. Just looks really good. I guess all the hype about him, being a bit of an athlete and can just do it. So bottom dollar. Obviously he's a fullback, but with some of the dramas you've got in the position and the origin coming up, I think it's a really good buy. I got him on him a couple of weeks ago, so can't cash out this week, but I've cashed out and actually got his points last week, so it worked out well for me. Declan Casey, I think it's a pass. It's, the fact that Jacob Carraz is back, as soon as Braden Burns is fit and ready, he'll slot back in ahead of Casey. You'd think so. Was a speculative sort of option, but I don't think it is anymore. Clint Gufferson, so I guess in the same sort of boat as Mitchell Moses, which is why the pod symbol's on him. Great Origin coverage. Probably won't see the Origin team this year. You could get on him if you want. It is inconsistent. A bit of a roller coaster, but I'd go one or the other, maybe not both. Is the way I see that. Is you can afford to roll the dice on one, but probably not both. Will Kennedy, he's there or thereabouts. Obviously not the shiniest option, but just does the job. So, nice pot option. Teddy looks like his price has bottomed out. So a lot of people went the Turbo to Teddy trade last week, with Turbo being a late out. Um, you'd assume they're both going to be in the Origin team, so it just seems super sideways to me to do it that way. And like I said, I copped Buller's score and actually scored more than Teddy, so that's a win. Drinkwater, he does have that Origin coverage, which is nice, but the average isn't quite there, so I'm probably going to pass. Turbo, wait and see if he's playing this week. He can always hit his break even. It doesn't matter if it's 200. So, you don't have to stress about that. If you've got the trades, you can, do what you like with the pick, but I'd suggest waiting on it. Latrell, so the only gun left standing, but the fact that his break even's 90 and it's in the green suggests that he's doing all right. He could be another $1 million player next week if it all falls into place for him. Dylan Edwards, a bit of a rougher pod option, I suppose, but a pod nonetheless. Reece Walsh, I think it's time to cut him. That's a massive break even. And he's surely got to be close to the fullback for Queensland in Origin. So give him the axe and a last minute inclusion because I just forgot to sort it before the recording. But Jaden Campbell, so with Brimson out, is a bit of a pod option at that cheap price. You can wait on him. I mean, you're probably going to go Buller if you're going a cheap option at fullback. But give him a week, see how he goes. He could reset his break even. And then, it could be a sneaky cash grab, someone that's going to, be playing games around the Origin period instead of resting potentially. And, like I said, I'm bit disappointed I traded him out of my fantasy team because he'd be going good for me now. So that just about does it for the stock market this week. As always, feel free to comment if you've got any thoughts on these players. Like the video if you enjoy the content. Subscribe to the channel. I think I'm up over 30 subscribers now, which doesn't seem like much, but considering there's only so many players that play NRL SuperCoach, it's pretty cool that you've got on someone like me who clearly doesn't know exactly what they're doing, just likes to talk about it, and just start a conversation, I suppose. All right, but other than that, take care, and I'll see you in the next video, which is probably going to be the round 10 or the Magic round preview sometime tomorrow. Catch you then.